The glitz and glamour of Hollywood often act as a shimmering veil, hiding a chaotic reality where massive egos, artistic differences, and personal insecurities collide. We see actors on the red carpet, arms around each other, sharing a laugh for the cameras, and we assume their bond is as real as the characters they portray. However, the film set is a high-pressure environment, a pressure cooker where people work 18-hour days under intense scrutiny. In this environment, professional respect can dissolve into pure, unadulterated annoyance. When we look at the history of cinema, some of the most iconic performances weren't actually born from shared inspiration, but from a desperate need to outshine a person the actor genuinely found irritating. The modern era of this phenomenon is best defined by the explosive fallout between Big Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Vin "The Boss" Diesel. What began as a powerhouse collaboration to save the Fast and Furious franchise turned into a Cold War that redefined the term unprofessional. The Rock, a former pro wrestler with a legendary work ethic and a 4 a.m. gym routine, found himself at odds with Diesel's alpha approach to production. Diesel, who viewed himself as the spiritual architect of the franchise, often stayed in his trailer, leaving hundreds of crew members waiting. The tension peaked when Johnson took to social media to call out "candy asses" in the cast. The psychological gap was too wide. Johnson valued military-grade efficiency, while Diesel valued his own perceived artistic authority. This led to the bizarre reality of The Fate of the Furious, where the two leads were digitally edited to appear in scenes together because they refused to stand in the same room. It was a billion-dollar family built on a foundation of mutual eye-rolling and Instagram shade. Transitioning from action to the world of comedy, the clash between Jim the Human Rubber Band Carrey and Tommy Lee the Grump Jones on the set of Batman Forever remains one of the most awkward encounters in history. Carrey was the rising king of slapstick, while Jones was a stoic veteran who probably hasn't smiled since the 1970s. Jones's annoyance with Carrey was almost visceral. It wasn't just about a movie, it was a defense of serious acting against what he viewed as buffoonery. When Carrey tried to bridge the gap at a restaurant, Jones's face drained of color. He told Carrey to his face that he could not sanction his buffoonery. In plain English, Tommy Lee Jones was saying, "You are way too loud and your face moves too much for my liking." Jones's refusal to engage with Carrey's energy created a toxic atmosphere on set, where the Riddler and Two-Face were genuinely trying to sabotage each other's screen time. This rivalry showed that even in a colorful superhero movie, the ego of a serious actor could turn a set into a very quiet Morgan. But Hollywood drama didn't start in the 90s. It was perfected in the Golden Age by Betty the Queen Davis and Joan the Star Crawford. Their feud was a masterpiece of psychological warfare that lasted decades. During the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, the two used the script as a weapon. Davis, knowing Crawford was obsessed with her appearance, made sure to look as hideous as possible to make Crawford look vain by comparison. The physical violence was real. Davis's kick to Crawford's weighted belt when Davis had to carry her was a calculated move to cause physical injury. They didn't just hate each other's personalities, they hated the fact that the other person existed in the same industry. When Davis famously celebrated Crawford's death, it wasn't a joke. It was the final word in a war that defined the darker, yet strangely hilarious side of fame. In the world of science fiction, the legendary bond between C-3PO and R2-D2 is perhaps the greatest lie ever told. For over 40 years, Anthony the Golden Droid Daniels and Kenny the Little Legend Baker lived in a state of silent hostility. Baker described Daniels as a man who looked down on everyone, treating his co-stars like stage equipment rather than human beings. The tragedy of their rivalry was the physical nature of it. Baker was trapped inside a hot metal shell, while Daniels complained about his own suit. Baker's attempts to be friendly were met with a wall of arrogance. Daniels reportedly didn't see the point in talking to the man in the box. This rivalry reminds us that the most beloved characters in cinematic history can be played by people who haven't spoken a kind word to each other in half a century, proving that you don't need a heart of gold to to wear a gold suit. Even in the most romantic films, the reality is often cold and frustrating. Patrick the Pro Swayze and Jennifer the Newbie Grey gave us the iconic Baby and Johnny, but Swayze's autobiography paints a picture of a man who was losing his mind. He found Grey's lack of discipline and emotional outbursts during Dirty Dancing to be an insult to his professional training. The frustration you see on Johnny's face when Baby fails to get the dance moves right was not a performance. It was a real man reaching his breaking point with a co-star he felt was being too silly. Similarly, the stars of 50 Shades of Grey, Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan, displayed a lack of chemistry that was so profound it became a meme. Their hatred was perhaps less about anger and more about a deep, fundamental awkwardness. They looked like two people who had been forced to share an elevator for 3 years without having anything to talk about. Finally, we look at the high-intensity world of method acting with Shia the Wild Card Shia LaBeouf and Tom the Tank Tom Hardy. On the set of Lawless, the line between the characters and the actors vanished entirely. LaBeouf, trying to prove his grit, engaged in a physical altercation with Hardy that resulted in the much larger Hardy being knocked unconscious. While Hardy later spoke about it with a sense of amusement, the underlying truth was a set where nobody felt safe. LaBeouf was reportedly drinking moonshine to stay in character, while Hardy was just trying to do his job. These stories serve as a reminder that the art we consume is often the byproduct of immense friction. Hollywood is a place where professionalism is often just a thin mask for personal disdain, and sometimes the only way to get a legendary performance is to cast two people who want nothing more than to walk away from each other and never look back. The reality is that movie sets are like high school cafeterias with much bigger budgets. You have the cool kids, the serious students, and the class clowns, and they don't always get along. Whether it's a difference in acting styles, like the method versus the classical, or just a simple personality clash, the friction between stars is often what gives a movie its spark. We might see love and friendship on the big screen, but more often than not, there's a producer standing just off camera praying that the two leads don't start a fight before the scene is finished. These stories of light hatred and heavy